Okay, afternoon everybody. So my name's I'm CEO of MagnaChain. It's a blockchain built from scratch, devoted to gaming. So blockchain means different things to different people. Depends on who you're speaking to in terms of audiences, the level of ending. So just quickly, how many people here believe they know the difference between blockchain and cryptocurrency? Okay, good start. For those of you who don't, there's lots of crazy stuff out there in the news and things, but the easiest way to think about it is kind of with the internet. Internet's a highway. Websites sit on the highway. One doesn't really exist without the other. That's probably the explain blockchain technology in crypto. Blockchain is the underlying technology of any cryptocurrency or anything crypto related. Cryptocurrency is something like Bitcoin or Ethereum or 2000 call alternative coins or altcoins that you hear about. Really, when you talk about fundamental shifts in gaming, as you can see, I've been in the game industry forever. I started out with PlayStation, kind of running in Germany and China, just a patch of countries in Eastern Europe, and launching PS3, PSP, and the big pillar software franchises and peripherals, accessories and such. And then moved on to Codemasters here in the UK, where I head up a national with distributor territories, emerging markets like Asia, Eastern Europe, and etc. During these times, there were lots of shifts. This covered a decade. And some of those shifts were into mobile. Nobody believed would be over $70 billion business, which it is today, over half the total industry. I remember when they first launched PlayStation Network, it was not the experience you have today, to put it mildly, nor was it on Xbox or anything else. So you go through these cycles, and a lot of times, one of the speakers yesterday on the blockchain track was saying, he made a very good point, is that previous cycles really format. It was about changing your game and making it work on mobile, or changing your game and making it work on Switch. Blockchain is something different. This is a totally new underlying technology, and most importantly, it has real-world value, and that's a first. If you have some digital assets, and I'll talk about it more in a second, you can change those assets for cash on an exchange. So this is the first time, really, you can openly and under your control, another huge difference, not on servers or something like that, where you own these assets and you can buy, sell, distribute, trade, burn them, whatever you want, as you like. And that's something quite different, and that can have huge impact for those of you who are developers in the room. How many are developing in the room right now who actually made games? And how many of you make mobile games? Probably at least 80%, I'm guessing. You spend what, 90% of your marketing money to retain 10% of your users? And of those 10, maybe 2%. It's tough. It's a real, I used to run an esports platform in Singapore for mobile games and synchronous gameplay. It's killer to try to find those guys, let alone hang on to them. So there's a lot of advantages as well, which we'll talk about in a second. But blockchain technology does not have to be this, mysterious thing, and it's all dodgy, and crypto, there's scams. It really shouldn't be. It's going to be around for a very long time. A lot of people think it's going to have a bigger impact than the internet, and a lot of people think that it's having a fundamental impact on the way people do business. And we'll talk about why gaming is important for that in a second here. This counter's not working, so you're going to have to let me know somehow about time and such. Okay. So I know these stats, but I want to talk about how it relates to blockchain here. So global market, it seems last year, about 140 billion. As I said, over half is mobile games for the first time. About 1 in 3 people in the world, you can define it how you want, but it means they play games somehow on their phone, on a PC, whatever, on their PlayStation. Esports is all the talk. It's all the buzzword. I've worked in it. I'm sure some of you have. But the fact is, it's just about $1 billion. I think 2018 it began to crack $1 billion of 140 billion. Not that big. Plus, it revolves around about 5 games. Now, hopefully that's going to change in the future, and you're going to have a lot of mainstream games. But if you take out those hardcore games, Counter-Strike, League of Legends, blah, 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 you're not left with a whole lot, and it's extremely intimidating. Your chances of being a top esports player is the same thing as being a professional footballer. And of course, Kaggle continues to grow. So overall, brilliant market. But what's really interesting when you look at the blockchain space is what the impact blockchain can have on gaming and vice versa. Blockchain, with all the talk and all the buzz around it, one major problem. It is a big R&D lab right now. There's very few real-world use cases. Most people in the blockchain industry or crypto industry are looking for these real-world use cases. Which sector is going to do it? It's going to affect banking. It's going to affect legal, real estate. But these are trillion-dollar businesses. There's going to be a lot of resistance from these businesses to change. Gaming's different. One, it's much smaller than those businesses. But two, gaming has an audience base which is really comfortable with new technology, early adoption, online transactions, sending money back and forth for digital assets that aren't physical. There's massive, concurrency between the blockchain early adopters and gamers in general, and that's proven in 1 million studies. So one of the things that blockchain technology must have to really go global and be used a lot is not just being able to buy Starbucks a cup of coffee, but to have that, you need to have a wallet, crypto wallet, and that might end up being in your watch or your phone. It's already happening. Your little mobile wallets that happen now, or you see WeChat Pay everywhere in Asia, nobody touches money. When these things are crypto enabled, it's going to be something different. So businesses are great to run on 1%, the 1% rule. If you think we convert 1% of the world's 2.5 billion gamers, you've pretty much about doubled the amount of crypto wallets that are there in the world right now. So very few industries can do that. There's about 30 million wallet holders. Some have multiple wallets, but there's about 30 million people that hold wallets. So that's why people are really excited, and that's why you're starting to see all these great gaming projects come online. So MagnaChain, it's like Ethereum, but it's built for gaming specifically. And it's built for game developers, by game developers. So ease of use. We have, if you go to our website, I'll show it at the end again, but it basically has a whole dev onboarding section, even a blockchain game, it doesn't matter. We have SDKs for Unity, Unreal, Agricia, and you can just, give it a try, onboarding site, our team will talk you through it. The whole point is we want thousands of developers using our blockchain. But what's really important is this could be a new way for developers to earn real money without having to pay Apple, without having to pay Google. Of course, you can put your apps on those things, but you're going to have to pay your normal 30%. And you'll have to market through those channels which tend to bankrupt mobile developers. With the blockchain, it's all about community, really more than anything else, because that's what the whole industry was built on. If you market very well to your community, you can make a lot of money with a very small user base. That is simply not possible in the world of mobile gaming. I know a developer with a top game in blockchain, I think they have 700 users. They're making 50 grand a month. Show me a mobile game that does that. It's very hard because people have a propensity to spend a lot more with crypto because it was built for seamless P2P, really almost free transactions, cutting out the middleman. So moving on, because I know time's an issue. What we have is something called Magna. In Ethereum, they call it gas. So I won't get into mining and all this stuff, but basically, for those of you, I'm from the hands before, unless everyone was lying, I think everybody knows what kind of mining is on the blockchain. We have our version of it, which is Magna. It powers the train. Now, we're going to have some other things that we're going to do on which kind of give our token a very unique utility specific to the gaming industry. But at the end of the day, it's really about having a really vibrant developer community and player community as well. All about partnerships, same as the normal gaming industry. So what we did, one of the first partners and strategic investors we brought on was the original licensee and operator of Warcraft in China. And back then, in the mid-2000s, MMOs were not what they are in China now. They built it from nothing, ended up being the second company to ever list on the NASDAQ, Chinese gaming company to list on the NASDAQ after Shenda Games, and they've been a great partner for us, and it gives us in an extremely, extremely difficult market to crack. Regulatory is something you'll hear about all over the place. You probably heard about it in 2018 for those of you that had crypto or still have what's left of it. Good thing, because it has what they call custodial solutions, which means people like Deutsche Bank and Fidelity, who have announced, their big foray into blockchain and crypto, they can entrust, as you can entrust to your broker to set up your account. So this is going to bring in a whole nother level of money into crypto, which we'll be sitting here in 5 years looking at a multi-trillion-dollar industry, not a few $100 billion. One of the partnerships we're really excited about as well is in Korea, #1 target market right now, and we're actually already active there. The Korea Mobile Gaming Association. Imagine if we had to go around the world meeting developers. Never going to happen. So we try to work with large-scale organizations, i.e. game engines like Unity, Agricia, but also associations who have tens of thousands of members or hundreds of members. And for example, in Korea, they want all of these guys on the blockchain. So we're looking to work with them, and we already have a partnership. We just announced a competition I'll show, where we're trying to bring more and more developers onto MagnaChain to really have a really vibrant ecosystem as a whole. Another great way to do it and grow your blockchain, hopefully there'll be hundreds of blockchains in a year or two, but initially is to IP in brands that people know. iPeoples from Korea in the early 80s, they licensed from a company in the early 80s that started the Korean version of Monopoly. They want to make a blockchain game. Everybody in Korea, if you say Blue Marble, it's the same way of saying Monopoly in the West. So they want to make a blockchain game out of it. They're in the process of it now. So we want to take that user base, reactivate it, and everyone recognizes, says, oh, I'll try this. And by the way, I could actually earn real money. So Monopoly being what a perfect game to adapt into crypto. Fun Block Factory is using a classic and well-known mobile mechanic, match 3 games, but adapting that to the blockchain, and they've got some really, really cool concepts. They're going to be one of the first games in the coming weeks, and we actually launched what's our mainnet, which is in blockchain terms the equivalent of Go Live. Alto.io is a company, another partner of ours, that is a marketplace. It's not a game. It's a place where you can actually develop the digital assets for you. And this is a really cool concept. You can use those assets across different games. So I'm sure most of you heard about CryptoKitties, a cat selling for $150,000. It's happened. These are tokens as cats. That's it. But people pay for scarcity. The same way in gaming, people pay for ultra rare items or gems and etc. So this is a proven model. Skins on machine guns and Counter-Strike and esports. This is not new. It's been around a while. The difference is when you integrate blockchain technology into it, you don't have to trade these items on a secret, dark web, third-party ecosystem. You can do it out in the open, my wallet to your wallet, we agree the price, transfer, done. Once I have that asset, then I can sell it to somebody else, and I don't need a publisher or a developer's permission to do it. It's a pure free market and democratization of assets. That's why you hear it all the time. And you'll also hear a term called NFTs, non-tokens. These are one of a kind, scarce, really, really rare assets. And those assets are going to have value. And that's why CryptoKitties was the hit it was, and now there's lots of other games trying to promote off that. But we feel that IP, NFTs, these non-fungible tokens, are going to be crucial to blockchain gaming being a success. So some of the partners I just talked about, initial partnerships, and we've got more we're going to announce in the coming weeks as we launch. I'm going to fly through this because of time. It's getting tight. We want to have developer centers around the world in major cities where we can have kind of very, very loose meetups the same way Facebook or Google does. We're going to start out maybe every few months, and then we'll see how it goes. But these are the core cities right now. Our focus markets are China, Korea, and Japan. But China regulatory is quite difficult right now. So these meetups and educating developers. Obviously, the west coast of the U.S., there's a lot of them, the U.K. here, some Singapore. I've just lived 7 years there. These places are hotbeds of development talent where we want to have our meetups and our get-togethers and educate people on not just MagnaChain, but blockchain technology in general, because the kind of can intimidate for no reason at all. It's an SDK, you're going through the same integration or API plugin that you would normally. The only blockchain technology is you have to think about how cryptocurrency can actually impact the monetization ecosystem of your game, which is very delicate. And if you start introducing like crypto, you have to really put some thought into it, because it can have a profound effect on the way that your monetization ecosystem can work within your game or platform. just generally some of the things we're doing, conferences like this, a lot of public relations, but in the blockchain industry and the world of crypto, these communities are enormously powerful. And like I said, a very small community can fund a lot of money to your game. And you can do things where you're directing people to your website, there's an APK, you download it, and you're not, shall we say, transgressing rules of the big app stores and things like that. It's simply how blockchain technology works. So there's lots of ways that you can monetize and keep a lot more revenue for yourself at the end of the day. And of course, we want to start, our vision is kind of MagCons, the same way Unity does with Unite, where every quarter we're doing larger scale events as we grow our blockchain developer and player community alike. So some of the team here, you can see we worked with some of the biggest gaming companies in the world, both in the West and other parts of Asia, and we're augmenting our development team right now. We've got about 13 in Guangzhou. We've got a few people in Europe helping out with biz dev, community management, investor relations, a few of us in the US, and I'm doing about 10 days a month and spending more time there than when I live there. And but in general, everybody's been around the block a little bit. So these scams and other things that you hear about in 2017 and 18 in crypto, 2018 was a painful year in crypto, but a necessary one. Very healthy correction. The next bull market's going to be very long, very sustained. It's going to have Wall Street and institutional money behind it as you start seeing custodial solutions and things like that. And gaming, for sure, will be one of the leading sectors, blockchain technology to the masses. And hopefully blockchain technology will bring a new way and bust some of these broken business models, especially in the mobile gaming industry, where developers don't have to worry about living month to month so much anymore. And I have to have 8 million users for my success. There's already proven in blockchain technology that you don't need that amount of users to do it. So I'm going to skip this part, but this is basically our first competition. We just announced in Korea. We launched it this month, and we're going to announce the finalists in May. Ideas for games, and we've got certain parameters, so it can't just be a wacky concept. It's got to be at least some kind of running alpha or beta, and we'll announce the winners in May in Korea. So that's it. There's the website. The community groups are on the bottom. To join, and we're running up to launch now, so you'll probably be hearing a lot more about us in the coming weeks. So, any questions?
Thank you very much. Yeah, so I'm going to chuck in because I have actually worked on a blockchain game. Mm-hmm. I was at Reality Clash, which soft launched in Australia and a couple other places last few days. I mean, we actually designed the gun skin model. So one of the lessons that we learned is to think about what happens to those tokens outside your game. Well, because it's blockchain, it's a distributed asset.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And it's often difficult, I think, for a designer to think outside of their own game. And like you said earlier, there's a balancing act between how that means you get new things coming into your game. Yep. Versus how the objects that you sell, be reused. Do you have any kind of advice for people on how to get started to think like that?
In terms of the impact of crypto outside your game?
Yes.
Yeah, well, think about right now in your current ecosystem, you've probably got some kind of super rare gem or item that's worth that payers either have to play for or earn through lots of progression. Think about the impact if you brought in something worth 1,000 times more. Because the fact is, if you have Ethereum or Bitcoin, or any other altcoin, most of them, you can go to an exchange and real money. You can't do that with a green or blue frog in your game. So it's a very delicate balance to have. You certainly want to treat it like something super rare, but it's not just about the currency and the tokens in your game that you might have, but the assets, as you just mentioned, these assets that maybe cannot be massively accumulated in the game. But one CryptoKitty is worth 150 grand in some cases. So it really, even the assets in the game, there's a car wheel, a rim on a car, anything. You got to think of it more like skins in these digital assets that can have crazy value moving forward. So I would say just really think about the balance of your ecosystem monetarily, how the introduction of crypto can really impact it heavily.
I mean, from our experience, what we found is that it was really interesting thinking about what made the asset unique. So we serialized the serial number for each weapon, and we will append history to the weapons as well. So as you play,
you know where it's been.
You know where it's been. You know what was done. How many headshots. So hopefully, when we have our Walther PPK equivalent, that's serial number double, there will only be one of them.
And if I can add to that, it's also quite cool when you start getting into mass games that have really competitive gameplay. You know, some of these players are heroes, especially in esports. And if you happen to have an asset where on chain ledger, I can see this guy owned it, this girl owned it, this guy owned it. Oh, it was owned by the superstar guy. That's cool. That's like owning a football or a helmet by a professional sports player. So it gives it that value, and it also gives you a real cool ownership.
But I think it's important to realize why you're using it, and if it's not thinking about distribution, you might find that it's actually complicated to implement and you're really not getting the value you should. So use it carefully.
Very much so.
On that note, thank you very much.
Thanks very much.